Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/kyhistorypod. You've probably heard about Daniel Boone, but what about the rest of the frontiersmen who came to Kentucky and settled? That's what we want to bring to the Kentucky History Channel. The stories of the untold, the stories of those forgotten. One thing to expect on our channel is great Kentucky content. Some stories that you've never heard of. The Night Riders, who began in western Kentucky. Bloody Monday, the riots in Louisville. The assassination of Governor Goebel, the only governor ever assassinated in the United States. Stories from all over Kentucky, stories that are unforgettable once you've heard them. You can find out who counties in Kentucky are named after and how your county got started. From beginning to end, we plan to document every county in Kentucky, all 120. Reach out to us on all of our social media platforms. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos. You can also check out our podcast episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many more. Welcome back to the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host, Jamison Cable, and I'm joined again with David Kirkpatrick. How you doing, man?
Doing great. You?
Doing good. It's a little rainy, but that's typical of Kentucky weather. We'll have sunshine one day, snow the next, and rain one day, and it just changes constantly.
Par for the course.
Yeah. Well, we have been putting out a bunch of episodes about the early frontiersmen of Kentucky, James Harriet, Simon Kenton, Benjamin Logan, and so on. We've got plenty more coming. If you have any suggestions, maybe just let us know, and we'll dig into some more. But we're going to talk about a specific station today, Bryan Station or Bryant Station, depending on who you talk to.
That's right.
I go with Bryan. Which one do you?
Growing up, I always heard Bryant, but anytime I see it in print, it's Bryan. So I've tried to kind of move towards that.
Yeah, I always think of the high school, Bryan Station.
Yeah,
and that's what we're talking about, right? So
right.
But yeah, just which Kentucky and clerical work, it happens a lot. There's a misspelling here and there, but
This is true.
But Bryan Station, one of the early stations of Kentucky, and again, before we even talk more about that, we're talking about a station. What's the difference between a station and a fort?
Well, stations are typically places that have one or two families. And you'll have a few buildings, and they'll have the picket around it, which is the wooden walls. But they tend to be smaller, whereas forts tend to encompass several buildings. They can hold multiple families during a siege. They can hold out a lot longer. So stations are more prevalent, numerically. There's more of them. But if you're in a pinch or if there's some sort of Indian attack, you want to make sure you can get to a fort if possible.
Yeah, very true. And a lot of people often think about Fort Logan. Probably not Fort Logan. Fort Logan's pretty close to a station. It's not that big. Fort Harrod, Fort Boonesboro, those stations or those forts are the more well-known forts in Kentucky. But the stations, and if you could have a map of all the stations in Kentucky in the early times, man, it would be numerous.
Oh, yes. Mercer County had something like, they only had one fort, but they had something like 20 some stations. So if you multiply that across, the great settlement area, which they call it in central Kentucky, you get a lot of folks.
Yeah, and same in Lincoln. I've seen a map before that has all the stations mapped out, and you have at least 15,
Yeah.
um, going from Whitley, to Logan and so forth. Um, but Bryan Station here is one of the stations located in Fayette County, really close to Lexington, about 5 miles from Lexington currently. Which, however you want to, I mean, it's Fayette County, so
Yeah.
one of the more known fortifications in Fayette County, and there's a historical marker. All that good stuff is there. Um, but it is a few years after um, Boone and Harrod and Logan and some of the other settlements have been established. We're looking at about 1779,
Mhm.
um, and a little bit later than the others, but still a pretty intense battle, a pretty significant fort, and what eventually leads to um, Lexington and so
Right.
forth. Um, but if
Yeah.
you want, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like so many of those places, they're scouting it in 1773. I think the hope is to settle pretty early on, but the war hits, and like you say, everyone kind of goes back to the east side of the mountains, and so yeah, the fort itself gets established in 79.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, and but it's established by the typical immigrants from Virginia, I guess. Not to say there's not ones from Maryland and North Carolina and so forth, but a lot of Virginians come over to Kentucky. Um, but this is a set of brothers, four brothers: William, Morgan, James, and Joseph Bryan come and settle this. But they also have a family friend, William Grant, who comes as
Mhm.
well. And I'm gonna throw you a curveball here. Do you know if this is the Grants that settled in Grant County by
Ooh,
chance?
that I
Because
do
I know
not
there's
know.
Samuel. I can't think of the other two brothers' names, but that's a
That's
side
a good
note,
question, though.
sidebar. Um, but anyway, they all come to Lexington, or what would become Fayette County, and build a station, right?
Right.
And bring their families and all that stuff, or just themselves at first, right? You said it was 1773 they scouted it out, or it was
Yeah, some
being
people were
scouted
scouting
out.
it out. I think they start living there permanently in around 76. But there's a lot of movement in 73. That's when like Louisville is first scouted out by Bullitt. That's when the McAfee brothers that end up in Mercer County show up. So there's a lot of movement in 73. So there's movement in that area. People I think are moving in a little bit in 76 or trying to, and then they leave and come back in 79 with their families. And I think probably there's settlement there in the spring of that year. And then by the
Mm-hmm.
fall, we really start seeing an influx of other families and things. So it's hard to know, I guess, what percentage of them brought their families with them initially. But
Yeah,
you feel a lot safer once
pretty
those
much.
wooden walls are up.
Yeah, 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 and that's kind of the way it goes. They get them a few uh, blockhouses built up, some walls and so forth. Um, the state of Virginia, um, I guess they lay claim to it and give the settlers certificates that kind of mean that they are. Yeah, I kind of think it's kind of you know uh, interesting that they send a certificate. Say, oh, okay, here's your certificate that you this is all good.
Yeah. You get to pick your
you
own land,
know,
which, as you can imagine, in Kentucky causes no problems whatsoever later, with everyone trying to stake claims at the same time. It was a
yeah.
mess for them. But at the time, it was a good way to pay soldiers.
Yeah, yeah, and so the fort's built up. It's quite a well traveled. I guess a lot of people visit there. Simon Kenton, of course, Daniel Boone, um, the McConnells, the Todds. Plenty of people visit, and that are well known.
Yeah.
Even Robert Patterson,
Right.
not the vampire or Batman, but
Yeah, the lesser known. I guess in that list, he's kind of third. I always held him up here, but on the list of Robert Patterson's, he's down there.
well, let's see who's the other one.
Oh, you're talking about the roles the actor played. So I was thinking, man,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Gotcha. Yeah.
And am I
Uh,
right in remembering that doesn't Boone have some kind of marital ties to the folks at Bryan Station?
well, um, well, the Bryans, right? Or
Right.
um, Yeah, what's his Rebecca, right? His
Yeah.
wife.
But there's a
Yeah.
second tie there also, and I can't remember what it is now. But yeah, the families are really interlaced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, well, so that um, a pretty well-known station. I mean, it's traveled a lot. People stop by, and say hi.
Yeah, oh,
um,
yeah.
but as you mentioned, or the year goes, this is 1779, 1770, or 1780. A lot of is going on not only in this area, but this is Revolutionary War time. So
Right.
there's always the threat of Native Americans, as those things go and increase during the war times, and that's kind of the way things go here at Bryan Station. We're going to lead into a big battle and so forth. But what I guess who brought this the battle on? The general um, and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, it was a rough year for them, like you said, because first of all, the winter is incredibly harsh, according to several sources, and so you don't have much to eat. And then you find out winter of '79 going into '80, and then they find out in '80 they might be on someone else's land, and talking about the surveys, and then they send some folks to try to get salt from Bullett's Lick, which is near Shepherdsville, roughly, and they're ambushed by Indians, and they don't make it. And there's another point where they try to send out parties to hunt and get meat in, and they try to be smart, and they split them into two groups, and one group is forced to flee, and they leave their cow behind and make it back to the fort. The Indians take the cow because it's belled, and they
Mm-hmm.
walk it through the wilderness, and the other hunting party hears the bell and thinks they're coming up on allies, when instead they're going up on native warriors, and several of those get injured. And it's just been a rough time for them since they settled in '79, and things begin to grow. So yeah, coming up on this point, they're ready to leave anyway. Almost, I mean, they're discouraged. And there's a British captain, Captain William Caldwell, and I think the British are kind of trying to um, redo what they did with some of their earlier victories in '77 and '80. They were able to come down from Detroit, use the flooded rivers in the spring. Of course, this is early fall at this point, late summer,
Mm-hmm.
and and they were able to come down and win some early victories against Ruddle's Mill Martin Station. So there's another effort, and they bring with them a pretty good confederation of warriors. Usually, when you're talking about this period, you're talking about the Shawnee. If you're in the southern part of Kentucky, you've got some of the Cherokee battles going on. But the British
Mm-hmm.
bring certainly Shawnee warriors, but they've got Wyandotte, they've got Delaware, they've got all kinds of other tribesmen with them. And I think someone estimated the number of Indians between 400 and 500. And so they are determined to ambush the fort or the station. Um, on a brief aside, I have trouble with that too, because Nancy O'Malley, who used to work at UK, so really deserve the title fort, because there's a lot going on
Yeah.
here. But, I digress. Uh, but it's August 1782, and the settlers are tipped off, that the attack is coming. They've got some scouts going on, and they have to make a decision about what to do, because anyone who's watching this maybe outside of Kentucky, who has ancestors here but has never visited themselves, until you've had August in the South, you've never experienced what that's like. You get the high humidity, you need that water,
Mhm.
and they've got to make a choice on what to do. First of all, they want to hold off as long as they can, so they don't want to do anything that's going to tip their hand to the Indian
Mhm.
warriors that are concealed in the woods around the fort. But they also need water, because they don't know how long this siege is going to last. And so that's kind of the setup to it. You've got a British captain with some regulars, and you've got several hundred Indians waiting, and they've got to reach a decision on what to do.
Yeah, and also on top of that, um, William Bryant is has been killed um, a little bit prior to all this happening. So that's another kind of setback that really wants this thought or the decision to abandon ship, go back to East North Carolina, Virginia, or kind of stick it out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, and also Simon Girty is part of that Native American
Yes.
troop that's kind of barreling in. If you think, I mean, so 600. or I think, what did you say, 400? Um,
Several
either
hundred. Yeah,
way,
I've heard
either
it.
way,
Multiple estimates. Yeah.
yeah, several hundred Native Americans, or an army of 700, anybody, or a few hundred of any army is going to be a bit intimidating if you were just sitting in a fort with not so many people there. Um, but
Right.
yeah, the water is another big thing, as mentioned. You know, Bryan Station was one of the few forts that did not have a spring in the inside the fort, so that becomes a big issue. How are you going to withstand a siege of any sort if you do not have, um, well, water? I mean, food's one
Right.
thing, but water's water's a little bit more higher on the list.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but with that, they had to get water as this siege, I guess, bears down upon them. They had to get water, and they actually send out the women
Right.
to get the water. But their thought was that if they send out the women as if nothing was going on, that the Native Americans would not attack. You know, thinking that if they wouldn't give up their position or anything to that nature, um, and it actually worked out.
Yeah. Did you talk about some brave folks? Because I mean, as you said, their only reason for believing this is that we're following our normal routines. That's going to prevent the attack. Any modern ideas about, well, civilians and all that, it really is not at play here. And they need only to remember a few miles away 2 years earlier when there were a number of massacres of non-combatants. So it
Yeah.
was a risk for these women. And you talk about being brave, because not only do you have to go out with buckets and load it down with water, you got to pretend like everything is great. And I don't know if I could have pulled that off. I can't imagine back then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and there was some of these women were young. I mean, little girls went out with them too because it wanted to be presented as if nothing was awry or nothing was unusual. So bravery, which I mean, you find tons and tons of bravery, I guess, on the frontier. But
Yeah.
again, another great example. Um, but yeah, it goes on. Um, the women get the water and so forth, and then they uh, bring it back, bring it back, and but like with the Native Americans, they typically have done this many of times. I mean, if you talk about a siege, there's the siege of Boonesboro, the siege of Harrodsburg, there's the siege of Fort Logan. It's not, you know, um, it's not. This isn't atypical. This is a very typical thing that they did back then,
Right.
hoping to
You knew what
starve
you were
out the
signing up
enemy.
for. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. So, you got two opposing forces. One is basically holding on to um, what they have inside, but on the flip side, the opposing force, the sieging force, if you want to say that, they have to contend with the same kind of elements, I guess, that the people inside the fort, have to do as well, just to a different degree. If you have um, food enough to supply, how long do you have supplies to set outside of this fort?
Right.
And it's really just a big waiting game, a big game of chess. You know.
Yeah. Very much so. And it's something else. This is just my personal definition. It may not be true overall, but in thinking about the difference between a fort and a station, you mentioned, one of the leaders, one of the Bryans being killed early on. It seems like with forts, you have multiple leaders who can step in times of a crisis. And maybe that's one thing that
Mhm.
separates forts from stations, because we think about McClellan Station, which is modern day Georgetown.
Yeah.
When the founder, was killed, the fort's evacuated for a period of time, and we almost see that happen here. So it's a big deal to have a leadership structure. And you're right. What they did and going out and getting that water. I mean, it really uh, saved the day, because the enemy realizes now that you're able to withstand a siege for a longer period of time. And the other
Hmm.
thing that makes it different from, say, 2 or 3 years earlier is Kentucky got better over time at responding to these attacks. You mentioned this is
Hmm.
run of the mill at this point. You know how sieges work. Typically, Native American war parties don't last terribly long against siege warfare. They're more hit and
Hmm.
run. They don't carry loads of supplies, which makes them fast and it makes them unpredictable. But it also means they can't stay in one area for very long. So they're kind of used to this. And the other knowledge is that even if they stay, you've got a militia system now. And George Rogers Clark has been working to build that up. Colonel Bowman has brought troops in to Kentucky they're sort of spread out at this point. So it's a different ball game, and so you've got to win and win quick if you're the British and Indians.
And so if you think so, this is almost getting close to about 10 years after. I guess it'd be 8 years, or wait, no, man, I'm doing my math terribly. No, 8 years from when
Years, yeah.
Harrodsburg was first established. So a good amount of time to kind of set up this structure, I guess, to say it in that way, or relief system.
Right.
But as they are gathering the water and everybody gets inside, it's within no time do the Native Americans surround the station and begin to try to assault the station. Numerous attacks are which I say attack. I mean, I guess it's one attack if you're thinking of military strategy, which I
Right.
don't I don't know any about.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, and they kind of wait. They're able to withstand the first attack, and then they kind of wait for another attack, and then it becomes a waiting game, waiting for the next attack to come or the next siege to come upon the walls. But they kind of wait, and it becomes this long. A few days passed, or not a few days. One day passes, and nothing really happens. And then, as you just mentioned, the militia system kind of comes into set here or into play. People start arriving. Relief parties, if you want to call them that, from Boonesboro and Lexington and Harrodsburg, show up, and that's kind of the backup, I guess. And Daniel Boone is with them. But anyway, these people do show up and kind of relieve the tension, I guess, if you want to say it that way. And I just wonder, because I don't really know like how long it would have taken, like when they would have had to send out somebody. But if you're thinking of Boonesboro to say Bryan Station, it's probably not that far. I mean,
yeah, especially if you were able to to ride. Now, I don't know what trails and things they were utilizing at this point, but if you're able to go at least part of the way on horseback, that helps. And I've often wondered, and I'm sure there's some historian out there who will laugh at me for this because I probably should know this, but if you're in Harrodsburg or some of these places, if you're near Stanford or St. Asaph's, if you can get to a river, the Kentucky is flowing in the right direction. So if you can utilize any of that, and I'm sure in this case they didn't, but I think in other instances it's probably helpful to you to be able to flow downriver. But yeah, it's I wouldn't think a terribly long ride, but especially when you're motivated to rescue somebody.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But yeah, so and that's kind of like you said before, the system was kind of set up. We're sending a runner or a rider, probably, um, and in some cases maybe even on a boat of some sort of transportation as well. But those kind of things happen. I mean, even um, um, uh, well, I lost my train of thought there, but edit that out.
I understand.
But this is kind of the way it went, and the quicker they got it responding, the worse it went for the British. And as it went throughout the Revolutionary War, the British did not have a lot of success in Kentucky at all, really, barring Blue Licks.
Yeah, Martin Station, and those, but
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, that's right.
in Roseville. But you're right; they want to. I mean, there's a clear attempt to. You definitely don't want to lose the Mississippi Valley, and so there are some efforts. And even when George Rogers Clark marches those guys from Corn Island to invade the Illinois territory, the British don't say, "Well, it's some backwoods outpost. We don't really care." I mean, they send reinforcements to try to retake some of that. And even though Clark is ultimately successful, you can see the importance they placed on it. You just didn't have the manpower to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the way it goes. When I sit here and think about this one compared to say others, you hear the stories of um, Simon Kenton saving Daniel Boone, or Benjamin Logan saving Harrison, and Simon Kenton climbing the fort wall to save the um, and hunting deer to bring food back into Fort Harrod. You have
Right.
a lot of those stories, and I guess the one that stands out with this one, I mean, barring the fact that a whole bunch of people that I guess were probably important people at the time were involved, um, but the women of the of Bryan Station that went out and fetched the water, those would probably be that's probably the heroic tale of this whole situation, I guess.
Absolutely. Because the benefit to those other guys, that's incredibly heroic, the things that they did. But one of the huge differences between the two is they were armed, and these ladies are
Yeah.
not. So, I mean, that makes it even worse. But wow, I mean, what nerves of steel, to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, yeah, and so, I mean, that's kind of we mentioned this before, but this will be a bit of a short one because that's pretty much it. um, they, the Indians, the Native Americans surround the fort, or they get wind of the surrounding of the fort. People have to make the decision on it, whether to flee or stay. Um, they end up staying, and they
Right,
send the women out to get the water so they can stay. I guess fortify themselves longer. And then they get attacked, they withstand the first attack. Reinforcements show up, and then the natives and the British decide that it's not worth it. That they can't penetrate the fort. Um,
right. And
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead. You go ahead. You got it.
Well, it's just it's so true of Kentucky history is that Kentucky is a great place and it's got a fascinating history, but never underestimate Kentucky's ability to snatch defeat from victory sometimes. Because as awesome as this is, it's the setup for what happens at the Blue Licks. Because when those guys are going, they're pursuing the Caldwell and these guys back northward. And it would have been a great victory if they had maybe paid a little more attention to the tactics of the natives. And because at this point, you've got a contingent of men from multiple forts. It's worked the way it's supposed to. Everyone has showed up. The British and the Indians probably knew they were coming, which is why the siege was so short. And you mentioned it being just a day. But defeat follows, and it's unfortunate. I will say, and this is my bias showing through here, that James Harrod is not with the men who are there, or the Blue Licks would not have happened. I'm going to maintain that. I have no proof whatsoever, but I'm going to maintain.
Well, I'll say going with your gut. That's probably a pretty wise choice, and that's the thing that happens. They didn't listen, and credit to Boone too, because Boone warned them a little bit and said, "Hey, we don't need to do this." Um, but yeah, if Harrod was there, man, it all went smoothly.
And of course, I say that, and then I have to admit that Hugh McGarry is the guy who gets the credit for urging them all across the river, and he was Mercer County, and so kind of
Come
offsets
on
that
here.
stuff. But but yeah, a really important station. I mean, so many families coming off the Ohio River are going to pass through there, and they're going to use that as a jumping off point. And man, for such a short lived period of time, Bryant Station is so important to early Kentucky history.
Yeah, and another thing to note too, as far as those original settlers, Bryan Station, I'll say this was pretty active for uh, you know many years there, but then as it declined, none of the other settlers ever returned back there to it.
Yeah,
But it didn't. It was still used. I'm not saying that, but those original people, they didn't stay there forever.
right,
They moved on. Um, but yeah, and again, really close to Fort Lexington. And if you think about, if you can visualize this in your head, you have Fort Boonesboro. Well, then you go up a little more. You're gonna have Bryan Station and a little more Fort um, uh, Lexington Station, or Fort Lexington, however you want
right,
to say it. Um, and then eventually, what we're going to talk about in a while is, you know, you can see this progression of settlers as then people start going up to the northeast towards Morgan Station and so forth, and then people are already connecting from Louisville to Lexington. So again, these forts and stations popping up everywhere.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at an increasing rate, and it'll continue. After the 1790s, it really takes off. But yeah,
Oh yeah,
once the Bloody Sevens is over in 1777, we start seeing that move of people into Kentucky.
yeah, yeah. Rough time in the this Bloody Sevens. That's what it
Right.
is. So, yeah. But Bryan Station also, high school now is called Bryan Station, and so forth. I'm going to stick with Bryan Station now because now that I think of it, I only hear people say Bryan Station, and I think those people are wrong.
That I think you're probably right. And like I said, that's one of the things I've had to retrain myself on because every time I've read it, it's just Brian, and I thought,
Yeah.
you know what? I think I'm mispronouncing that.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean that's pretty much what we got for Bryan Station. I do believe there is a book about it. I've had a lot of trouble getting that book. I believe it is called Bryan Station Heroes and Heroines. It's by Virginia Webb Howard. Um, and I would definitely like to get that and read it and maybe have some more to talk about it. But this is just or I guess our online research and prior knowledge that we're throwing out there. So definitely something worth reading. Definitely for early Kentucky history. Like we said before, this is, I guess, prime time from 74 to 84 is kind of the foundation, and then from probably 84 to 94, it's booming. It's booming,
Right.
and then it just explodes probably from 1792 on, as far as immigration and so forth. But anything else?
I think that's hit it. An important place and worth remembering.
Yeah, yeah. If that's all, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/kyhistorypod. You've probably heard about Daniel Boone, but what about the rest of the frontiersmen who came to Kentucky and settled? That's what we want to bring to the Kentucky History Channel. The stories of the untold, the stories of those forgotten. One thing to expect on our channel is great Kentucky content. Some stories that you've never heard of. The Night Riders, who began in western Kentucky. Bloody Monday, the riots in Louisville. The assassination of Governor Goebel, the only governor ever assassinated in the United States. Stories from all over Kentucky, stories that are unforgettable once you've heard them. You can find out who counties in Kentucky are named after and how your county got started. From beginning to end, we plan to document every county in Kentucky, all 120. Reach out to us on all of our social media platforms. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and also leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos. You can also check out our podcast episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many more. We're always seeking to find more Kentucky history so we can bring it to you, the viewers, the listeners. We want all the stories and all the events from Kentucky's great history to be told and shared everywhere.